Okay, let's call the meeting to order. Everybody be serious now because we have business to conduct. Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Then I'm going to ask for, are there any additions or corrections to the agenda? Yep.
We can strike 12 and 28. I did not receive those.
12. Okay.
Usually it's a pretty tight time window if they get it in or not.
Okay. Anything else? If not, I'm going to ask for approval of the agenda with the elimination of 12 and 28.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
A second?
I'll second.
Motion is made by Josh, second by Rick to approve the agenda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. And let's move on to the consent agenda, and we have a lot of items under there. Are there any comments or any questions about that?
Yeah, we have the pay estimate for the final pay estimate for the 2017 infrastructure project, pay estimate number 3 for the 18 project, MMUA annual safety program contract, that's annual.
Right, and I had a question with that. Yep. Is that amount the same as before, or did it go up?
It is the same.
Same amount? Okay.
It is the same.
Okay.
Then we have the Westberg Ishins contract, and that's who we approved as our auditors for the upcoming 3 years.
And how much did we save on that? We saved it.
$21,500 was what we paid this year. Next year,
18 plus 350.
Yep, 18,000 plus 350.
Okay.
So a little over $3,000 we saved on that. And then I have a list of election judges to appoint for the November general elections.
Any questions on the consent agenda? If not, I'm asking for a motion to approve it.
I'll make a motion to approve it.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Motion made by Rick, second by Brad to approve the consent agenda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Then moving on to new business, we have 18. Consider introduction of ordinance 418, amending animal ordinance.
Thank you, Mayor. This is an idea I want to pitch back to City Council. I know one of the items that we were looking at getting more of a handle on was the dogs running at large. So reading through the ordinance, I noticed we don't have anything that requires a property or a dog owner to keep their dog on the property, other than the infraction of running at large. But there's no stipulations that you have to have them leashed or fenced in or some sort of way to keep them from running at large. And I thought if we could have something, that a preventative measure, then we could help prevent at large from happening in the first place. But I didn't want to write some broad brush language that would require the good dog owners, the good dog and cat owners who have trained their animals well to stay on their property. I didn't want a broad brush approach that would require them to tether or leash or some form of that. We want to make sure that the ordinance goes after those who aren't responsible and let their dogs run at large, but doesn't punish those who are good with their dogs. So that's how I tried to craft the language. And the new language in this is, if you're looking at number 2 and 3 in there, 1 was already existing under running at large. And so the language that goes over it is that, really if you start with 3, if any of these apply, the number 2 applies. So if you have a dog or cat known to run at large by any previous running at large infraction at any time, or a dog or cat with potential to run at large. This is defined as easily distracted by other animals, humans, or other circumstance in which the dog or cat is caused to disengage from the owner and go towards the distraction in a threatening or non-threatening manner of any sort, and requires the owner to regain control of the dog or cat, even if the dog or cat remains on premise during the event. So we're trying to cover those ones that have been animals that have had a running at large infraction, and those that threaten to, because I think we've all, if you go out walking, you've probably all had that one dog that'll bolt right up to the property line and get real excited. They may be threatening, they may not be, but you don't know as a passerby if that's going to happen. And some dogs are just really, dogs or cats are really good. They just sit on the lawn and they don't do that. So that's the catch we're looking at here. Then it goes back into section 2, where if you do have an infraction or it is It is a potential to run at large. Then we could enforce number 2, which is requiring a tethering or a fencing or some sort of digital method of keeping the dog in the lawn.
Okay, anybody have any questions about this?
I do. Well, you have 2 feet from property setback for underground fence. What happens to people that got the underground fence in already?
Grandfather.
Okay.
I took the 2 foot because we do require 2 foot setback
Yeah.
for regular
Yeah.
residential fencing.
Any other comments?
No.
Okay, then I guess I need to have a motion to approve ordinance 418.
I'll make a motion.
Second?
Second.
Motion made by Brad, second by Rick to approve Fairfax ordinance 418. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. And moving on to the purchase of transformers and the bases. What's your view?
All right, we had a gentleman here from, well, he was helping Compass out, go through and get our beehive mapping system all done. And we've noticed a few transformers that are kind of decrepit and need to be replaced. They got rusted out bottoms, the locks won't lock anymore. We don't need all 7 this year, but you know, if you want to approve to have 7, but we need at least 3 at this time, just to get them and fix the ones that are needed to be fixed. And a couple need to be raised up with some taller bases underneath them, so they're not sitting down in the snow and buried in the water in some spots. But it's kind of a safety issue for some of them. So
Okay, so explain under budget.
Under
Some
the-
monies was not spent, so we have,
Yep, and if you remember in the 2018 budget for the electric fund, we had the replacement of the high side switch, which we're looking at rolling into next year's project as a substation upgrade. And then we also did have budgeted the engineering for the substation upgrade project. We engaged the engineers to do that engineering. However, they're a very sought-after engineering group because they do a good job, and they haven't quite gotten around to our project yet on their docket. So we're anticipating they probably won't get around to engineering until next year, which means we can supplant that money that we had budgeted for those things this year. We'll have to take care of them next year, but we could use those monies to purchase these things this year.
questions, you guys? Questions for Joel?
What is your recommendation then? To do all or just do what we need?
okay, we can do them all if you want. If the money's there, that's fine. Otherwise, we can, like I say, we can do 2 or 3 this year, and we can get the rest next year too. They take about, I think they said they take at least 4 to 6 weeks to get it. You know, so they're a month to a month and a half out, but at this time, so.
The money is there, and I'm still projecting about 77,000 revenue over expenses for 2018 in the electric fund.
Yeah, I'm good. Let's get all of them.
Yeah.
Have them on hand and,
Okay, so with that, excuse me, then if there's no more discussion, I need a motion to approve the purchase of the transformers and the base.
I'll make a motion to purchase the transformers.
Second.
Motion by Rick, seconded by
It's actually
John.
at like 7,000, not the 10,000, because those are 2 different sets of bases.
Oh, okay.
So it's
Okay.
actually at like about 7,000, not the $10,000.
Not the 10,000?
Correct. It'll be right around the 7, because there's one set of bases on there. It's got 2 different heights of bases. So like there's the ones are 400 and the other ones are 250. So it'll only be one or the other.
Oh, I gotcha.
So it'll be right around that $7,000.
Okay,
And we will get some money back on these because we have some of the 3-phase transformers that are no longer being used. We're gonna swap those out with these 25s, and then you can turn those in and you get so much money per kVA of those transformers. So there'll be some money coming back also.
okay, good. So, motion by you, second by Josh?
Yep.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Then let's go on to the purchase of the insulated pad mount switch, and that's for you, Joe, because that's
All right, a pad mounted switch, basically it's it's another safety issue because right now we have to go and pull, like if there's an outage on one of our circuits, like on let's say we got an outage up on the northwest corner and we got to tie a couple circuits in together, you have to pull a minimum of 4 to 6 elbows to swap, and you have to pull 3 off, set them off, and put 3 on. And with this switch, you won't even have to do that. All you have to do is you have to go in and just flip a switch and you can tie the 2 circuits together. It'll be safer. You won't have the time that it'll take to, your outage will be minimized. You'll have, your customers will be happier. So. And we got 2 that we're gonna resalvage because there's 3 of them going down on the south circuit and we're gonna resalvage 2 of them, but we need 1 more of this style to put up on the north end to make it work.
So that's $14.95?
31,000.
$14.95 is just the base that it sets on in the ground. And yeah, the 31,000 is the.
I thought we could get it really cheap.
No.
That didn't go by.
It was
Okay.
a good thought.
Okay, so what's everyone's thought on this? We're still within our monies,
Yes.
okay?
Yep. I think the good thing, like you said, is from a safety
It's a
aspect,
safety
it'll
thing.
help. Plus from a customer service standpoint, where it's gonna be far less downtime trying to get all those elbows put, switch the circuits back together to get power back up. Go down there, flip it, power's back on. People in town are happy.
Yeah. If the money's there. Looks good to me.
Okay, then I need a motion to approve the purchase of the pad mount switch.
I'll make that motion.
Second?
I'll second.
Motion made by Josh, second by Brad, to do the purchase of the pad mount switch. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Then we're moving on to number 21, which is Resolution 2018-11 for the hearing on the proposed assessment for the 2018 infrastructure project.
This would set the hearing for November 13th, 2018 at 7 p.m. here at City Hall, where we would have a presentation of those. Bolton Mink will send out the letters like what they did with previous projects, telling everybody what the assessment will be, the assessment letter put together, so if they want to come in and ask questions about it. I do have a sample, a large format sample sitting over there of the assessments as they've been proposed. If anybody wants to peruse through them, they certainly can. But they'll be getting their letters within a couple of weeks, I would think, for that full amount. And the assessment style that we're doing is the exact same as we've done for previous projects. So nothing has changed there.
Sounds good. I'll make the motion to set the public hearing. Second that.
Motion is made by Josh, second by Brad, to accept the resolution for hearing on proposed assessment for the 2018 infrastructure project. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Now, it's your turn.
It is my turn. The curbing at Lions Park is in. Looks very nice, considering it a success. We only had a couple places where kids walked on it, so all in all, it'll be immortalized in history until it gets yanked out and redone again. But no, it looks good. I mean, the footprints, they're very minor, so not too worried about it at all. But we're still waiting for the fencing guy to come in and install the fence. I know Joel has been on him on a weekly basis, calling him.
He did the same thing when we did the water plant. He didn't respond yet, and all of a sudden, boom, then he shows up and he does it all on the weekend. I don't know.
Where's he from?
He's by Shakopee,
Okay.
but yeah, I've emailed him, I've called him numerous times, and he did the same thing at the water plant.
Just so he gets it done before winter.
Yeah. And I know he did talk about coming to get the post all in, and then he'd probably have it like in the wintertime, he'll come and do the fencing just for filling and just have stuff in the wintertime to do. So, all the posts will be in and ready to go, and then he'll come in and install the fence probably later. That's what his first thought process was.
This week I'll also be reviewing, I've been reviewing the liquid cash we've had on our funds, And I'll be meeting with Franson Investments. We moved all of our investments with them, so I'm meeting with them this week and we'll determine the best routes to reinvest those liquid cash flows that we have to get our best rate of return on that, while still meeting our cash flow needs. EDA will be hosting a town hall meeting this Thursday at 6:30 p.m. down at the community center. And that will be for the purpose of getting community input on the closing of the local grocery store, ideas if anybody has them, looking at starting up an advisory committee to help with that process of what the next steps are. Because it's been a big thing going around town, and we want to give, the EDA wants to give that venue to have the public come in and voice their concerns or comments, questions, ideas, what they have.
I think I just want to say that when the EDA met, we really want community input on this. And I think we need that. Not having a grocery store would be it's a big deal for our town. So we want some community input, and Bob Fox was in today, and he happened to come in when I was in talking to Nick, and we had a nice conversation with him. And I think there's a lot of things that can be done. We just need to brainstorm and then move forward. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but.
Nope. Excellent additions. So yep, that'll be Thursday, 6:30 down at the community center. On the HRA side of things, it's been quiet the last couple months. Fairview is full. Southview has a couple of openings. So far, everybody's been pretty impressed with Van Binsbergen and the job they've been doing with managing the complex. So that's been going well. We've started some preliminary work on the project idea to supply Franklin with natural gas, the city of Franklin. Got some cost estimate back on what that will run to get it out there, but then we have to, I have to do more of the cost calculations of what that's going to look like on a realistic basis for return. So once I get some more work done on that, it's not a pressing project, but if it's looking feasible, I'll definitely bring it to council for consideration and discussion on it. If it's not looking feasible, I'll update you, but probably drop the project. But we'll be looking at that over the next handful of months. Reminder, elections are coming up November 6th. So if you're not registered, go ahead and make sure you get registered for that. Then we'll be canvassing the elections at the November 13th meeting. Also at the November meeting, we'll be doing my one-year performance evaluation. Similar to the 6 months, I'll send it out in advance. All the evaluation forms, you'll get those, fill them out, turn them back in, conglomerate them. Same type of process as we did for the 6 month, unless you want to do something different, of course, but seems like the process was pretty.
We should do something really different.
Some sort of physical test, kind of like the firefighters.
I just kidding.
And then one other community event I am going to be working on is when I worked as a city administrator in Canby, I had this group come in and they are a traveling magic act, and that's really a really lay way of putting it. They do shows in Las Vegas, they do shows in Branson, Missouri. They're not a small time act, they're not a super huge time act, they're up there though. And we had them perform in Canby a couple of times. When they did the theater renovation project, they had a stage involved as well. So they had them come in, and it was a near sold-out show. The first time, it was an incredible performance. They did a fantastic job, very family-friendly. And then the second time they had them perform, they had tickets sold out even before the show. They actually had overflow seating in the balcony area that they were using just to get people in that wanted to see it. So I kept my ties with that group, and I reached out to them, and I asked them if they'd be able to make a stop in Fairfax. And a good way to get a really good discount on a traveling group like that is don't make yourself a destination, make yourself a stop on the way. So if they're going from point A to point B and you're in between, it's very easy for them to do a quick day trip as long as the schedule is flexible, and they usually give you a pretty steep discount to put on a good show. So that's what I'm working at with them. We're looking at January 6th, 2019. That's a Sunday, most likely in the afternoon sometime, down at the middle school auditorium. Would be a good venue for that. So still working on fleshing that out. I think would be a good thing. just something in the winter for the community to come in and take part in. Real family-friendly show. And that's all I have for that portion. Now we'll get away from the sunshine and the beach and to the equally exciting financial reports. Thank you, Aaron. So for the general fund side of things, general fund, the expenses, pretty normal and expected for the most part. Some notes, the fire department and ambulance had a couple big orders of supplies that came in. It was just that time to refill on things, and that just cycle comes every couple of years where it all coincides at once. We had the seal coating bill paid for what was done on Park Street, and then we had some repairs for snow department for maintenance repairs on that. This spring was really hard on our snow budget. Some of the equipment needed some pretty decent repairs, but it was a whole lot better than having to replace. Joel did a great job. I want to commend him on that for finding alternatives to keep the cost down on that. So thank you to Joel for that. And we had ordered a lawnmower, I think it was a few meetings ago. Turned out it was underpowered and not what we were needing. It wasn't able to run some of the attachments that we were hoping so. So we turned that in and got an upgraded version of that to meet that. On the general fund revenue side of things, ambulance revenue is looking below target, but that's kind of been the story this whole time. Garbage revenue is on target, and community center rent has been above target. It's been used pretty well, which is really good to see. On the water fund end of things, normal expected expenses, water sales are looking to be below target. At this point, I'm going to put that at a $5,000 estimate. Under target, so we have budgeted $350,000 for revenues, and it's looking like it'll come in that $345,000 target. Wastewater side of things, normal and expected expenses this month. Wastewater sales are stable and on track for budgeted amounts at this time. And like with all of these, I'll keep track of these from month to month. Storm sewer, normal and expected, and storm sewer sales are on target. Electric fund expenses, normal and expected, nothing substantial this much to speak of. Electric sales are coming in above target for budgeted amounts. At this point, conservatively putting that at $30,000 above revenues, which is about 3% above target. Electric fund does a little over $1 million a year in revenues. Natural gas fund side of things, normal and expected expenditures, and natural gas sales, predicting they'll come on target, but as we hit the winter season, depending on how cold or mild it is, it'll swing it on the back end, because most of the sales for the natural gas are in the cold months when it gets used the most, and depending how much the farmers use for the drying for the farm taps we have. So we'll see how that all pans out. Liquor fund expenses side of things, expenditures are coming in on target. One note I do want to make, if you notice that, like for the last couple reports of these, the balance, the cash and investments part for the liquor fund had made some jumps downwards on the balance sheet for cash and investments. So I did we had it for a couple months running, so I dug into that to figure out why was that really happening. And what I saw is Brittany, she's not here. She wasn't feeling well and didn't want to infect anybody else, but she had been ordering some inventory, and she had been doing some bulk buying to get some better discounted prices. But she did quite a bit on the liquor inventory side, so our inventory is pretty high in that right now, between September and August, and you'll see that getting offset for the rest of the year, because she's not going to be buying nearly as much anymore, because she's quite well stocked at this point. So be using that for the remainder of the year. So that'll balance things out, and we're coming into our better sales month with not so much October, but November and December are better on the off sale side with the holidays and everything. So we're expecting that to balance out towards the end of the year and get back up there. Liquor fund revenues end of things are still coming in slightly below budget, and I don't have any estimates at the time of what that's looking like. Just because we'll need to see how the holidays go. So as you can see, the breakdown, the prior one to the current one, and again with the liquor fund, just making note, over the next 3 months, I am expecting to see that swing back in the positive direction and gain.
That's a pretty big swing,
It was a lot of purchases.
big swing.
There's a lot of purchases. But now that the inventory is there, our purchases on liquor will be very minimal for the next 3 months.
And she knows that.
Yep, we've discussed that. Any questions on any of that so far? Otherwise, I'll go into the wonderful graph portion. Water revenues, once again added in September for this. September water revenues were about average, with the exception of 16 in there. They were hanging in there. Wastewater revenues, again, right in that ballpark of where it generally is. Doesn't fluctuate too much. Storm sewer revenues, right in there about where it was in 2017. Electric revenues were about where 17 was. You can see last month in August was a little higher. We had the warmer month there as compared to 17 the year before, so it's about where it usually is. And if you see, you know, and we've talked about this before, but it's good to know. You can see the 15, the blue line numbers are fairly high. 16 starts out high, then about September it drops off. That was about when Prensco went offline, and they were a major electric user. Natural gas revenues, September, that'll be adjusted in the next one. I'll adjust that back. You can see September is really low. We haven't, when we get our gas prices, then we do our utility bills, but then we also have to bill out for Heartland's portion, and depending on when we get that back in the revenue and expense report is when I get it back here. We haven't received it quite yet. They do pay it, but depending on when the council meeting hits, if it's early in the month, sometimes we won't get it right on time, but if it's later in the month, well, it's always the second Wednesday, but when that falls on, we can usually get in there, but that'll be adjusted in our books for next month. I expect it to be about what it has been for August, July. And then the Frontier Bar total sales per month of September was a down month. We aren't exactly sure why. Maybe it's the weather, maybe it's farmers trying to get out into harvest and they just can't quite. Not really sure why the sales dipped quite that much.
It's big.
Yeah, and we were doing pretty good for July, August, July and June, July, and August. We were doing pretty well. So I'm not sure what happened in September, but October is usually you can see it'll start to creep up. November and then December with the holidays in there, so that'll be our upswing. That's what I've got for the financial report. Any questions on any of that?
I just need to turn the Frontier around. Okay, you're all done?
I am all done.
Then we're gonna move to Joel.
All right. Street project is moving kind of slow with this dreary weather, so they actually only have one block of storm sewer to do yet, and it'll be finished. Everything else is done. All the temp water's off. Everybody's back to regular water. Other than the storm sewer in the alley, or these alleys are both done, and then the one over by Todd and the Kicker and 4th Street and 3rd Street, that's all done also. So, been winterizing the parks, getting them ready for the wonderful winter, and other than that, that's kind of about it.
Okay. Mr. Police Chief.
Is this thing far away?
I pulled it back a little bit.
Last month we had about 207 events and calls. We did have some property damage done in Lions Park. and I don't know how much it is yet, but I did find 3 juveniles that did it. So they are caught, and they're cooperating, and we're gonna work with them to try to get it paid for. That's about it. Those are the people that also did the community center. So, anybody have any questions?
What happened to the community center?
Spray
It
paint.
is spray
Spray
painted.
paint graffiti. They're working really hard today to get it off. Wasn't coming off very easy.
Well,
I
at
watched.
least they're trying.
Yep. Got a little work to do.
That's all I have.
Questions, anybody? Comments? If not, Brittany's not here. Then we have the building permit list in front of us. We have that. And committee minutes. Anybody have any questions or comments? Let's go to council member individual items. Anybody have any comments?
No.
Fred? Rick? No? Then, do you want to go over the enterprise fund?
Yes. This month, next month, December, we'll be taking up enterprise as well as start to focus in on the general fund projects and any tweaks that need to be made to the general fund, but the focus is primarily on enterprise fund. Now, as we get towards end of the year, we get more full year's worth of data, so that'll help guide us in making sure this is all tuned in. In the water fund, even as a reporter looking at a $5,000 estimated reduction in revenues. So this year we have the 350. I reduced that down to 345 to be more in line with what we expect revenues to be. Other than that, we have some investment income adjustments on there. I like to be conservative in that. Other than that, not too many changes on the revenue side for water. On the waste or on the water expenses end of things, adjusted the wages, the paraFICA, the health care, or the health insurance end of things, and all that related stuff. Got that all adjusted, and then looked at the other expenses we had and adjusted those to be fit with those as well. Inserted all the loan payments that we make on that. So if you actually go to the end on page 3, the last one down towards the bottom, you will note that in the 2019 requested budget, looks like we're running a deficit of $139,587. If you noted that, what that is we have one debt, the 2000 PFA loan that's falling off, and that's about $80,000 worth of payment. However, the 2018 bond we took out, payment starts next year, so we're having 1 year of overlap in that, which is causing this increase. And in the rate study, that was planned for. So the fund will simply take a hit in the reserves. It has a good reserve, so it can take that. And plus, the other part of this is we have $120,000 in non-cash depreciation built into this. That is also built into our rates. So that will absorb the rest of the blow, is the 120 non-cash depreciation. So overall, at the end of the day, from a cash flow basis, it'll still be just fine. But after the 1 year of overlap and the 2000 PFA loan drops off, that 80,000, and then it gets back to stable once again. On the sanitary sewer fund end of things, expecting revenues to come in about the same as where they had the $215,000 mark. So kept it at that. On the expenditure side of things, again, inputted all the overhead costs in there and the labor that we've got calculated. Nothing too radical in the changes here, just going through, watching expenses, see how they come up, what's going on, seeing what those expenses are and tying those in. Again, same story, sort of the same story with this, and this is a kind of the theme that we had with the rate study, is that we have the non-cash depreciation in all of these funds, 120 for water, sanitary is 70, I think storm was 50 or so. And to keep rates stable, since that's a non-cash item, we're essentially dipping into that depreciation as a way of putting it. Since it's a non-cash item, we don't necessarily need to raise our rates to cover that. Well, that's just to help keep things stable for the consumer. On the storm sewer fund end of things, keeping the revenue stable on that end as well, so no change, no substantive changes on that end. On the expense side of things, the storm sewer fund doesn't really have a whole lot of expenses, except mainly it's ditch assessments, some other fees in there, very minor. Depreciation and debt service and depreciation are the two main ones that comprise the storm sewer fund. In the electric fund, the budget is staying roughly the same. Some of our commercial, residential, commercial, and commercial power allocations were a little bit off from what the actuals were coming in at, so I changed those around, but they come out to about the same, just making sure they're allocated properly based upon what our revenues have been. So you can see the current budget, we have just a little over $1 million in revenue, and it stays about the same spot there. I'm thinking by the end of the year we could probably move that up a bit based on what we'll see, but I want to see the last 3 months and how those play out to really get a good feel for that. Otherwise, I'm going to keep it conservative at this point. On the expenditure side of things, I consolidated some more of the things out of power production and into distribution. That seemed like they belonged there better. So you can see we really slimmed down the power production. A lot of those line item codes aren't being used anymore, and even previously they were slimly used. Consolidating that down really into those categories. On the distribution end of things, tweak things for what we're seeing expenditures come in at. And then down into administration in general, again, consolidating those, getting those really hammered down into the categories they ought to be in. And you can see at the other financing, page 4, that'd be the other financing sources on the requested budget. We have $500,000 transfer from reserves. That's a 39203 code, and that's for the planned substation upgrade that we're proposing to do for next year. Just take care of it all in one shot. The electric fund is doing quite well, as you saw in the PowerPoints. A little over about $2.2 million in cash and investments right now. We want to keep at least $1 million in there for operating purposes, so we have the cash revenues to go ahead and pull the trigger on this project and stay in a very healthy position in the electric fund. And then you can see on capital outlay distribution, you have the $534,000 in capital expenditures for the substation project, and those are broken out. You can see there between the high side switch, the transformer, equipment installation. That also includes the SCADA system that was talked about early in the year, but council's direction was to budget for that in 2019. Adding in a transformer replacement program so we can start getting our transformers replaced in a timely order rather than waiting for them all to kind of go at once. Take care of a little bit of them each year so that they're in a constant rotation, evens out the cost of replacement for those. So that came to $534,000, and then we have the transfers to the general fund of $100,000. With the revenues over expenditures being about $52,700 looking at this point. To the natural gas fund, taking a look at what those aligning those revenues, bump those up a bit, 17, looking at 17, what those were, bumping up our revenues to match what the growth has been in that. On the expenditure side of things, again, overhead, labor costs, tying those in with past expenditures, taking a look at our purchasing and what we've done with natural gas and the transportation on that, and what other fees have been, digging down into those figuring out what were maybe one-time purchases versus ongoing, and balancing those out, including the bond. To note, back in the electric fund, there are no debt services associated with the electric fund. We do have one debt associated with the natural gas fund, and that's plugged in here as well. So you can see all of that plugged in. Not too many projects planned for the natural gas fund of the capital expenditures. On the liquor fund end of things, took a hard look at what we had gained in 17 as far as revenues, really trying to tighten this down. So looked at our liquor, or our alcohol and food sales on the on sale and off sale end of things, getting those tied in tight, making sure we're going to stay real close to this budget and do the best we can on that. On the expense side of things, you'll have the off sale and the on sale tied in the overhead and the labor once again, and then making sure our expenses are very well researched in there, because this fund we want to make sure we keep a close eye on, make sure we can cut costs where we can and boost revenues where possible to make sure this comes out ahead. And that is our first look at the enterprise funds. Any questions on anything? If not, shoot me an email, give me a phone call if you see anything that pops out at you.
Comments?
Good.
Okay, no questions? No comments? Okay, with that, then I guess I'm gonna ask, any other concerns, anything? Anybody? No? Then I'm gonna ask for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion.
Got a second?
Second.
Motion made by Rick, seconded by Brad and Josh. Can we adjourn? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried.